All right, everybody, what's going on? Welcome into Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media Channel. I am Bryan, your host. Some people call me BLT. A lot of people call me LTL. Whatever it may be, we're here. We're having fun on this Monday, and I am very excited here for an action-packed show. I'm going to bring Nan on in a second. She is making the waves around the YouTube channels and across Twitter. Huge fan of the channel. Like, I just found out she's actually been watching me a very long time, and I'm very honored to have her on the show this evening. So what we're going to do this evening is kind of break the show down into three segments. We're going to obviously start off with Karen Reed. We're going to get into Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. And at the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger, because Nan is very invested in that case as well. And I'm dying to hear her thoughts on that case. I'm not going to wait too much longer here. We're going to bring on Nan, bring her up on the panel here, and welcome her to Let's Talk Live. Nan Gallagher, attorney Nan Gallagher, how are you this evening, and welcome to the show?
How are you, Bryan? It's so great to be here. I can only tell your audience, I feel like I'm fangirling a little bit. You know, all of you should imagine what it's like to meet someone you've watched on a screen for well over a year, who you really admire, and have an opportunity to just have a really important conversation with them. So thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate it. And again, I get to watch you quite a bit on Mike's show the other night, The Young Jerks, and everybody kept commenting on my videos like, you got to have Nan on. Everybody's hitting me on Twitter. You got to have Nan on. She watches you. She loves you. And I'm like, all right, let's just do this. Popular demand. Let's get her up here. And I'm really looking forward to this. So let's start this out. Can you please tell my audience a little bit about your background and what inspired you to become an attorney?
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I feel like some of your audience might be carried over from the Young Jerks. So please give grace, guys. If I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But I'm an attorney from New Jersey. I'm licensed in New Jersey, New York, DC, and the Third Circuit. I've been practicing now for almost 25 years. And I do healthcare law, which essentially I represent doctors, and I do everything for them except matrimonial. I will not get involved in matrimonial actions, but civil law, administrative defense, criminal defense, anything involving insurance companies as it relates to the doctors getting their claims paid, etc. And by the way, with that reminds me, Bryan, if you ever feel like you want to sink your teeth into the Luigi case, Luigi Mangione,
yes,
the unfortunate killing of the United Healthcare executive, I have a lot to say on that. But as a healthcare lawyer from New Jersey, I also have a tremendous love of true crime. And I've told another audience the other day that my kids say that mommy likes murder. And I really, in fact, if I had the ability to show you guys a bulletin board I have in my home office, there literally is a sign up that essentially says, like, my mom loves murder. So I worry about the mental health of my children in the coming years. But I wanted to be an attorney for two reasons. Well, really three. One, I like to talk. Two, my late mother, God rest her soul, used to tell me, Nan, you make a federal case out of everything, which is probably true. And three, I really felt like it is important to make sure that justice is served, whether it's in a criminal courtroom, a civil courtroom, an administrative hearing. And there's got to be people who are passionate about that, who are representing both sides. And that kind of brought me to where I am. I own a law firm. I run a busy practice. I boss people around like a boss, but with professionalism and hopefully some good articulation. And I love what I do. And I love watching the YouTube content creators on all of these really budding and important and languishing cases. You all add something different to the mix.
I appreciate that. And so let's talk a little bit. How did you get involved in following the Karen Reed case?
Yeah. By the way, I think it might be backwards on my camera, but I have my "I'm a Serious Person" T-shirt on. For anyone who's hate watching right now, I'm a serious person.
I love
But
it.
anyway, Karen Reed case really, really interested me, not only because I just follow true crime and love a good mystery, but once the case became public, more public than I'm sure it was up in the Massachusetts area. Once Aidan Carney kind of boots on the ground broke this case investigatively, I just kept hearing things and reading things, which my interest started in writing. I was like reading articles going, huh, what? And mainstream media was reporting some things. Now, keep in mind, I'm down in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. So I'm getting little bits and pieces. I happened to then start following Turtle Boy, and I'm reading these articles going, there seems to be a disconnect in the reporting. So I then kind of went to YouTube, which I was not a big YouTube user for a while. I got an interest in YouTube during the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, which was just, I mean,
blew up all over the place.
A complete shit show. And I'm here for it. But anyway.
Literally a shit show.
Yeah. But you know what, though? That case, which was a civil action, spoke to me, but I went to YouTube then, which predated obviously the Karen Reed matter. I went to YouTube then and realized that I was getting, and I dare say your audience is getting, better news quality without filters, without angles from YouTube content creators than they are from the mainstream media. And I just said to myself, I'm going to be as impartial as possible, read what I can read, listen to what I listen to. And I decided in my mind that at an absolute minimum, if I were a juror on her case, I would vote for reasonable doubt. I would have definitely put in a verdict for not guilty on the charges. That was the original charges, and then they were escalated. And then I saw all of the lambasting that was going on up there and the vitriol, and just, it was very divisive, and it still is. And I really would hope and I want that to change. So, and I think the YouTube creators I follow do as well. And I just said, if there's anything I can do to help this poor woman and her family, or to help the general public, not those in the solitary echo chamber of Free Karen Reed, if there's anything I can do to help give some insight with my personality and my take, I wanted to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's super polarizing up here. I mean, living in here around this area in Massachusetts, I mean, you can't go anywhere and no one would not know about this case. I mean, that's how polarizing it is. And it's like you have like the staunch supporters, like the diehard Free Karen Reed, or you're just completely on the opposite side. But I'm going to tell you, like 99% of the people that I run into in and around the Massachusetts area are total Free Karen Reed. I don't really see too many of the, what we call the blue shirt people. Too many of them. I mean, they'll hover around the courthouse when we're out there to hearings or during the trial, but not many of them that I know on the street, you know, that I'll walk around and someone will see me with like a Free Karen Reed shirt and they'll be like, oh, she fucking killed him. You know, like we don't really hear that. I mean, you just hear people screaming back like, hey, Free Karen Reed, we're with you. So it's a crazy case. And it's like one of the most craziest cases that I've personally followed. You know, it's just, it's insane what they're trying to do to Karen. I mean, it's just a complete sham of a trial. I just don't understand how a jury couldn't see through, you know, I mean, literally, I had friends of mine that don't really watch court cases or trials. And this time they obviously got invested because it was in Massachusetts, and they might've watched like a day or two of the trial, and they're watching like Jennifer McCabe and Brian Higgins and Brian Albert being on the stand. And they're like, are those the people that are on trial? Like,
yeah. You know, Brian, I'm listening to you and I'm listening to your accent, and it reminded me of something, which is I wanted to make sure your audience knew this. I also worked for a national law firm right out of Boston for a little over a year, many years ago. So they were headquartered in Boston. Boston is, and I live about 30 minutes out of New York City. Boston is my favorite city. I love visiting there. I love the people there. I love the real salt of the earth personalities that are up there, gravitate towards that. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is I have some, not many, clients from Massachusetts all over the state. And when I speak to them, I ask them, I think people think I'm this crazy true crime lady, but I say, have you heard about this case? And they've all heard about it. And in varying degrees, which I love hearing. I want to raise awareness. And for those who are from Massachusetts and have not heard about this case, they all seem to have this, she's being railroaded. What is going on? Why are taxpayer dollars being wasted on this mentality? So I think about those things and I say, gosh, we've got to raise more awareness. Is exactly what I am trying to do. I have no angles here other than to try to help educate people.
Yeah, I'm gonna say there's a lot of people in the chat that absolutely love you. And Kelly Reed, Karen Reed's cousin, is actually in the chat right now.
Hi,
And she
Kelly.
said, I'm 100% free Karen Reed. I'm a new fan of Nan. Plus, we all cherish you, Bryan. So, Kelly, thank you for jumping in and watching the show. It's really great to see you here.
Thanks, Kelly.
So let's talk a little bit about Robert Alessi. Absolutely love this guy. A lot of people don't know that he's been involved in Karen Reed's case and on that team for a little time now. He's just kind of been in the background. And I love the fact that, this time around in the hearings, you're seeing him more prominent in these hearings. I think he's very easy to follow, which is nice, and very precise in the things that he talks about. And I think he's an absolutely brilliant match for Brennan. I think he just gets up there and smacks him every single time. What are your thoughts on Alessi and Hank Brennan?
Fun? Isn't that fun to watch that? Does that anyone in the chat raise your hand if they like watching Brennan get smacked around figuratively? That's not a call to arms. So, this is another reason why I think it's so vital to follow content creators, because mainstream media will not say that Robert Alessi has been part of the team, even in the backdrop, for some time. I wouldn't have known that other than hearing it in these circles. But I have to say, when thinking back to some of the statements that I was making about him last Thursday on my YouTube debut, they kind of came to fruition. I was so happy to be validated personally, not like an I told you so validated, but just wow, I said the other day, he's a tremendous ad. And this in no way takes away from David Yannetti and Alan Jackson. It is just, we all as people, we all as lawyers or doctors or people who work in gas stations, etc., we all have different approaches to how we do our job. And he has this very methodical approach to his diction. I mean, as an English major, I was all over listening to him saying flummoxed and all of the great vocabulary words.
Yeah.
Wow. But also actually saw on X the other day, maybe yesterday, someone was saying when he starts doing his orchestral hand gestures during the oral arguments, you better buckle up. And I'm paraphrasing that, but it was a really great comment. The scientific and methodical, not methodology, but the methodology. Everybody take a drink. Methodology. No, but the methodical approach that he takes to just breaking down what I would perceive really complex arguments. Everyone has to try to understand, because while things sound clear as day to us. And we're like, this is so fundamental. We understand it, but not everyone follows at such a granular level. He takes very complex concepts and breaks them down.
In
And
simple terms.
God
Yeah.
bless color coding. I
Yeah.
mean, when I heard color coding, I rolled up my sleeves and I was like, I am here for this. Bring it, Alessi. So he is absolutely fantastic. And there was some discussion yesterday on some of the social media about who he should cross-examine, and not to the detriment of any of the other current attorneys, but there's scientific parts of the defense of Karen Read where, in my opinion, Bob Alessi might be even more pivotal in crossing. And one other point on that, Bryan.
Sure.
Sometimes, as a litigator, sometimes it's best to have a different attorney do a cross if you have to repeat cross someone, because like someone like Jen McCabe or anyone else, fill in the blank, knows what she's getting from Alan. And I think Alan should cross her, because the best thing that can happen is when you are being asked questions by someone you hate, you're triggered and things come out, and it's like Hollywood for attorneys. We love it. But on the scientific pieces like Trooper Guarino, Alessi would be pivotal for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ramble on, but I really think he's the boss. I'm going to get an Alessi t-shirt, just like I'm going to get a Jackson and a Yannetti one. You guys will be seeing them if I hit your shows.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think and then I think kind of bringing him around the second time here to kind of give a new look to the judge as well too. I mean, we know that, there's been a lot of absolute bias towards Alan. She's not too in with Alan Jackson and Liz Little. She gives David Yannetti a little bit, in talking about Judge Cannone, obviously, gives David Yannetti a little bit more levity. He's a Boston guy, been in the court system. But I think to throw this new attorney in there, she's got to kind of whittle her way around this and say, okay, how do I, kind of dance around with this guy? And I think it's a good strategy in that sense too. I honestly think we're going to probably see a lot of him in Karen Read 2.0. What is your thoughts on that?
I think you will as well. And if anyone can hearken back to one of, or the first hearing, I don't remember what they were there for, but the first hearing when Alessi was, newly brought to the case, he and Brennan were getting their footing with Judge Cannone, and Judge Cannone was getting her footing with them. Everyone was a little trepidatious, like, okay, getting to know each other. What do you like? What do you dislike? Should I stand at a podium? Should I not? So I think it was very abundantly evident to me on Friday's hearing, which I was watching from court and just laughing my ass off. I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse on your.
No, let's go ahead. Have at it. We're adults.
But, I'm sitting there going, I'm going to get kicked out of court or held in contempt because this is just masterful. But as I was watching that, it was definitely apparent to someone like me that Alessi was becoming more comfortable. And let me tell you all something. I think your audience would gravitate towards this. I know you would as well. I saw everything I need to know about Hank Brennan from the first couple of minutes of that stream. I don't remember who I was watching it through, but Alessi walked into that courtroom before the hearing, and Brennan did not even greet Alessi. Okay, Alessi had to go up to him and say hello, or hello, sir. And one thing the judge I used to clerk for used to say to me, you've got to be cordial and friendly with your adversaries. It used to be very heartwarming for him on motion days when the adversaries, the attorneys sit around generally and wait on motion days to be heard. And when two adversaries sit next to each other, even if they're going to take the gloves off and go at each other on a motion, if you guys can be professional and human beings, you do so. And Brennan didn't even acknowledge him. So this is a strange mission for him. I don't understand his motivations. I can tell your audience that he has torn through that $75,000 that were allotted to him, which is
Sure.
what it's gone.
Yeah.
So it take great pleasure, anybody who's following the case, that he's probably now working for free. And he's not enjoying it because he got spanked.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's do a little compare and contrast. I'll play about 3 minutes of each. We'll play Alessi and we'll play Brennan. We'll talk a little bit about their styles. And I got some questions about Brennan when we get to his little his testimony here. So I think I have Alessi first. Actually, this might be Brennan. Let's go talk about Brennan since we talked about Alessi quite a bit here. So let's play through a couple minutes of this.
Attorney Alessi, pardon me, asked you about Dr. Walsh's statement about the cause of injuries. You remember? He just asked you that?
Yeah.
What he didn't offer in the report is this, and let me know if you agree with it. Decedent John O'Keefe was documented to have craniocerebral injuries, including skull fractures of the optical skull and the
Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate
radial
that.
bone with associated subdural and subarachnoid hemorrhages. These injuries of the scalp, skull, and brain are consistent with, among other things, a backwards fall, unobstructed, unprotected falls due to various reasons and known to result in serious craniocerebral injuries resulting in death. Other mechanisms of injury cannot be excluded. Do you agree with that?
I'm going to allow him to do it.
Do you agree with that part that you didn't hear of Mr. Walsh's opinion?
Yes.
The documented changes in color, swelling of soft tissue around the eyes are most consistent with the medical finding of periorbital ecchymosis, as documented in the autopsy report. Periorbital ecchymosis is a passive accumulation of blood around the eye secondary to the documented skull fractures. These findings are less consistent with and are not documented as contusions of the eyes. The 1 centimeter laceration of the right upper eyelid, laceration of the anterior right tongue, and abrasion of the anterior and left aspect of the nose are documented, considered nonspecific, and may have occurred to a variety of mechanisms. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. The 2 red contusions on the dorsal aspect of the right hand were documented. The hand injuries may represent an injury sustained during an unprotected fall in which the back of the hand impacts the ground. These hand injuries are nonspecific and may have resulted from impact of hand with any blunt object. Do you agree with that?
It's possible, but there are other mechanisms.
Okay. When you talked about those articles that Mr. Alessi had you read, there is nothing that details what pattern recognition analysis is, the specificity which you are looking for when you're looking for a wound, does it?
I disagree.
Okay. When you looked at that Exhibit 5, if you could pull that up, you said individually none of those wounds could you say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty were caused by a dog. It's only if you looked at them collectively.
Yes.
Okay. When you look at those collectively, it does not tell you the order in which the wounds were incurred, does it?
No.
It doesn't tell you if they're all incurred at the same time, does it?
They were occurred around the same time, I can tell you that.
Yes. But they don't tell you the order, the chronology, do they?
No.
No. In fact, when you look at the studies that you introduced with Mr. Alessi, let's talk about the Mutaton very quickly. There's a chart, page 298. It talks about the things you would want to do to identify a wound. It talks about scene investigation, doesn't it, in the chart, table 2?
That's a fatal case, though.
Scene investigation is something you would look for?
That's in a fatal case caused by a dog. The cause of death was the dog.
This whole thing is, the whole excerpt is a fatal case that you're relying on for this pattern recognition analysis. This whole article is about a fatal case.
That's
isn't
what
it?
I'm saying.
Right. And in this fatal case that you're relying on to say this pattern recognition analysis, it points out scene investigation is the priority, doesn't it?
I think you misunderstand. The focus of that article is to identify the dog that caused the fatal injury. In this particular case, I don't believe any of those are fatal injury. That is not the purpose of the identification of those injuries.
Does the chart?
How does that play to a jury? That snarky.
Not at all. Doesn't play well at all. But and by the way, I'm a little snarky, Brian. So I had to, and I've been known to have RBF in my life. So I will say this. I had to learn the hard way that as aggressive as you think you want to be, the everyday jurors, they don't really like that. They're not really wowed by the gotcha moments. Now, I'm going to say there's an AJ exception to that because it's just, he's from another universe. It's just amazing to me to watch him. But one of the other things that I wanted to mention on that clip is that Hank Brennan is literally trying to depose her. Like this daughter hearing, she is a uniquely qualified expert, ranging from her forensic pathology background to her medical degree to her police background to the experience in the ERs and dog bites, both as a treating physician and as a supervising or an educating physician. Hold that aside. She is there to give her opinions at trial. So she's already qualified. The Daubert motion or attempt, which was an outright failure as far as I'm concerned in the end, really was his conniving, that's my opinion, opportunity to get a first bite at the apple. So then he can have something to aha her with at trial. And, you know, the woman is a seasoned KG veteran, and he's going to try to confront her at trial with, but you said this on this day when I asked you this really pigeonholing, unfair question that wasn't, the objection wasn't overruled. So I got this question in, and it's going to possibly try to rattle her. I thought she came in much stronger for this Daubert hearing than she had at trial. The other thing I think is important on that is that she's giving him answers to his questions and he doesn't like it. And it happens to all of us. I don't like your answer, but that's the evidence and that's what the jury has to weigh. So I'm not loving him. I don't like his approach, and I don't think a jury will either.
Yeah, I went to try to find the clip, and I was going through like hours and I couldn't find it. There was a point, I know, when he was crossing her, he had that book that I think was written by his friend, is the dog bite book or whatever. And he kind of like threw it on the table in front of her, like some Hollywood dramatic moment. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, that's not going to play well in front of a jury. Like he threw it at her and kind of turned his back and walked away and went back to the podium. And I'm like, I feel like I'm literally watching a movie right now.
Yeah.
Just not going to play well for a jury.
It's not. And it's so funny, though, because juries make decisions on evidence and verdicts based on like the most superficial reasons. I was once told by a jury after I got a verdict that they didn't like the shoes I was wearing on the second day of trial, and that really stuck in two of their heads. I'm not saying that's why they did not rule in my favor, but they make really interesting yet weird, superficial decisions on things they see, behaviors that they experience. I will tell you this: anyone who's rude to a witness who is more seasoned in years is not going to play well. You need to respect your elders, and especially ones who school you in education and experience.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's get to, we'll play a little bit of Alessi. We'll talk a little bit about him. And then got a couple more questions about the defense team. Let me just get to some of these super chats that came up. So Sandy says, $10. Thank you so much, Sandy. She said, thanks for all the great content, Bryan, and welcome, Attorney Gallagher. Thank you so much. We have Jen O, a member for 3 months, said excited for our new bestie, Only Nan. I love that. Butaki Duckworth says Only Nan, fuck the world. I love that. Armor of Alessi, $5, says, I think Alessi is a masterful at making complicated things understandable and handles Bev's snark like a juggler with fire sticks. Oh, that's really good.
That's right.
Another $5 super chat from Armor of Alessi said, you cannot say it, but I can. In my opinion, it is possible that Hank is getting paid by funds laundered at what we say a pizza joint.
Oh, man.
So we got checking in. $10. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So thank you, Bryan and Only Nan. And then Catastrophe says, Hank filed a motion today to not pay for the expert. I haven't seen that motion, but definitely I'll have to take a look at it after the show. And thank you for updating us. Buzzing for the Truth checking in. 12-month member. Thank you. Says, hey, Nan. Well, hello.
Hey,
all right, let's watch a little bit of Alessi on this last previous hearing here. Listen to his masterclass.
May it please the court. Mr. Green is eminently qualified to provide testimony in this case with regard to the subject matter that has been challenged by the prosecution in this case, and that is with regards to the search house long to die in the cold that occurred at 2:27:40 a.m. on January 29th, 2022.
I'm going to tell you right now, Nan, what I love about this, and it just brought me back to Karen Reed 1.0, the opening statement, David Yannetti. Karen Reed was framed.
Yeah.
It had that same tonality to it. It had fact. It was just driven. You know, if a jury was sitting there, I think it would just prop them up. And I thought it was just masterful the way that he opened there.
Bryan, before you hit play, one of the other things I want your audience to appreciate is Alessi has a method of telling the court what he's going to argue or what he's going to next. So he'll say, and I'm now going to address the issue of, or we're now going to look at these arguments, Your Honor. And I will tell you, just from being educated in debate and being in debate clubs, going through law school and moot courts, and now in of court where I listen to young attorneys making arguments, being able to forecast to your listener, including the jury, by the way, that'll play well to a jury.
Mm-hmm.
When you forecast to your listener where you're going within your argument, how it's going to be structured, it allows the brain to like decompress a little bit, so you know where a certain piece is ending and a certain piece is beginning. It has a melody to it, and I would bet, and maybe Kelly Reed could find out for me, I bet you he has a musical background down to his conductor hand gestures. I bet he does.
That'd be interesting to find that out. I'll have to kind of sniff around and see what I can come up with. Let me just get this in really quick. $10 super chat from Cape Cod Cred said, we all as YouTube followers have the time to digest and learn. Do you recommend the defense takes time to dumb down things more and drive the NG verdict to the jury? So let's do this. I'm going to actually ask Nan about that question after this, and we'll get to that. And I'd love to hear her perspective on that here. All right, let's play about 2 minutes of this. I just want to see the cadence and the I mean, this Alessi is like absolute passion. I love watching him work, and it's just really great. Really great stuff.
Me too.
Mr. Green, and I want to cover the baseline for this hearing first. Mr. Green testified at the first trial. He testified without objections as to his qualifications. He testified without objections to his methodology.
That's what people really have to understand in those two, is that they're making a record again. So if this ever, God forbid, has to go to an appeal, this is all on the record. And I love that he's pointing out the fact, like, listen, you let Mr. Green come in and testify before. No one had any qualms about it. He went through, what was it? The Daubert hearing. He went through that. You've allowed him to come in. So how are you not going to allow him in this next trial? Absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Agreed.
Your Honor sat, obviously presided over that trial. Your Honor did not issue after his testimony any limiting or curative instructions with regard to either his qualifications or methodology, nor did the prosecution after his testimony stand up and ask for any such limitations or qualification. The baseline for his qualifications and methodology was established again without objection. And
it's Peggy's phone.
But they are being challenged now.
I was just waiting, Your Honor. They are being challenged now, but the reason I state that is because what Mr. Green has provided in response to this motion is even more detail than what happened in the first trial. In Mr. Brennan's argument, he did not make one argument about Mr. Green's qualifications. Zero. So I'm assuming,
Here comes the passion.
because there's nothing in their motion
Here it
that
comes.
even goes into why he might not be qualified. So to me, Your Honor, that's a tacit concession, if not expressed, that he's qualified. And of course, he has to be qualified in digital forensics because there are 5 other areas of digital forensics opinions and methodology that Mr. Green is testifying about that has not been challenged. So to me, it is rather odd right off the jump that there's no challenge to 5 other areas of data forensics, and there's just this challenge to one aspect of this whole testimony and opinions. I have provided Your Honor with 2 exhibits demonstrative in support of my oral argument. Exhibit 1 is entitled Digital Forensics Methodology Regarding Subject Artifact, and Exhibit 2 is entitled Digital Forensic Product Tools Used by Witnesses. The Commonwealth has agreed to my use of those exhibits. They had some, I agreed to theirs, and I would like to, Your Honor, use those in a moment. The Commonwealth, in its oral argument, said 10 times just now that there's no methodology and that Mr. Green does not articulate a methodology. That is incredible to me because the opposition and Mr. Green's affidavit, in fact, are replete with the methodology. And here is the key, Your Honor. While Mr. Brennan challenges the methodology, none of his witnesses, neither Mr. Whiffen nor Ms. Hyde, challenge the methodology. As a matter of fact, in their 2 reports, neither of them even describe Mr. Green's methodology, nor do they challenge it. And of course they can't, because it's the same exact methodology that they use. And that's what I would like to go to now.
All right. I don't want to play too much, but
he's forecasting where he's going and his
Yeah.
voice builds. I love it.
yeah.
I'm
I
here
love
for it.
how he starts to build his momentum, that passion starts kicking in, and he gets very demonstrative, and I love that he uses that word because it's such a great word. Let me just pull up a couple of these. Mimi, thank you so much for becoming a new YouTube member. And Glamour with $10 says, hi, Nan and Bryan. Glad to hear you live again, Bryan. And Nan, Dr. Russell is amazing and very impressive. If he treats Dr. Russell like that in the trial, the jury will want to slap him. Happy Monday all. I love it.
Amen.
I love the opinions. So, I mean, again, it's a good comparison of Alessi versus Brennan. You know, it just is a complete masterclass. You know, takes that information, and that's what I love about Alan Jackson too. Is they take that, you know, very complex information and they break it down in a very simplest terms so people can understand it. Let me ask you this, Nan, and we'll get back to that question that one of my viewers had earlier, because I actually have this in my notes. So this time around, what do you feel like should be the major focus on the defense's part? Obviously, the Commonwealth is going to lay out their case that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe and left, but what would you like to see them focus, you know, this time around? And what would what things would you like to see this time that we didn't see last?
That's great. By the way, I'd be very interested to see the prosecution lay out a case, because they sure didn't during the first trial. But I digress.
Right.
As far as 2.0 is concerned, and I always feel the need to give this preface, which is I have no criticism of her team, and we all as lawyers learn from experiences, and not once in leaving a trial in my career or a deposition, which is sworn out of court testimony, I've walked out of all of those saying, I should have asked that, or I should have done that. But in terms of seeing something change, I think that the defense needs to not presume that this is so clear on its face. And many of the people I'm sure who are in your audience think it is like clear as day, as do I.
Mhm.
But you have to kind of say, well, what would the average impartial juror think? So don't presume it's as simple on its face, and put on more witnesses. Be in a position where you can explore, perhaps lead with ARCA. I also think that they should do their very best. And I don't know the specifics of the prior motion that must have been filed before the first trial, which limited any reference to ARCA being engaged by the
Right.
FBI or an FBI investigation or
Yeah.
probe. But to the extent that might be revisited, it's sure worth it. I mean, Brennan's revisiting everything, so they should start revisiting as well. But lead early on with ARCA, put it in, and by the way, before that, in your opening, really say, because that's the essence. And I really loved, Bryan, when you approached Plevin on the street outside the court, you were like, do you believe in science or something like that?
Asked him if he thought the earth was round.
Yeah, like seriously.
He said that's offensive to ask that question.
How
I'm like,
dare you
why?
ask?
He's like, oh, it's spherical.
How dare you ask such a logical question?
I know.
But anyway,
And
I
he
think
tried to actually, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
He actually, he acted like he didn't know who I was. I'm
Please.
like, come on, Plevin, you know who I am.
Oh.
You know, like
he knows everything. He's probably made
everything. He's
Sims
probably watching us
video
right now.
about you as well, or a simulated BLT sandwich at this point, which, by the way, are my favorite sandwiches on rye, egg on the side. But anyway, bacon, well done. You don't say extra crispy when you order bacon, because it will come out burnt. Well, you say well done. But anyway, lead with more ARCA. Let the jury decide early on in their minds that don't emphasize so much the conspiracy. It's there.
Yeah.
Lay it out throughout all of your questioning. And I think one of the things that the onlookers, the people who watched the trial, don't really realize is that even though the defense only put on, I don't know what it was, 5 or 6 witnesses, they actually got the benefit of a lot of the other witnesses on cross. So they were in a position where through cross-examination, they could ask questions, for example, of Jen McCabe. They got a lot of their evidence from Jen McCabe and Higgins. So they didn't need that many. I think they need a police procedures expert, which I'm happy we can maybe chat about that when it comes to Enrique Delgado-Garcia.
Yeah.
And lastly, and there's a bunch of different suggestions, but lastly, I would say that emphasize the sheer number of coincidences, how that just, make it make sense. How do all of these coincidences happen? And I want to mention one thing to you about that, because the number of coincidences as it relates to reasonable doubt, like you got to emphasize reasonable doubt. But when talking about coincidences, I was talking to a sheriff's officer in a courthouse last week, and we were talking about this case, and he knew a lot about it. And I asked him 2 questions. I said, do you speak up about this case? He says, no, law enforcement will not speak up about this case. But the takeaway from that was that there's a fear of doing that. If you speak up, your voice might be held against you, and you don't want to get yourself in trouble. The other thing he said to me, he said, Nan, there are no coincidences. If you think, if you see someone in 2 different places behind you, they are following you. It's not a coincidence. So I think about that, and I think the defense team could really strategize and say they just don't add up. And brother counsel did a whole presentation on coincidences. It was very effective in another closing argument on another national case a few months ago. And juries really, they do tend to gravitate to that.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's shift gears a little bit. But before we do that, I want to kind of do some name association. I asked you about this and you're like, I'm all about it. I thought this would be a fun little game to play. I'm going to throw some names, and if you could give us maybe a sentence or two of how you feel about this specific person or team member that I bring up, and it's all Karen Reed related. And then we're going to transition a little bit into Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. So I want to ask your thoughts on that. But let me just throw this out at you. All right, so we'll start with this, the Karen Reed defense team. I know we could literally break them all down by specific person, but you can give us a sentence or two of how you feel about the Karen Reed defense team.
And before I answer you, I
Sure.
really would love everybody to just take a moment and like this video,
Please.
subscribe if you haven't. I don't care if you like what I'm saying or not. Bryan is perhaps one of, if not the most compassionate and passionate podcasters that I've encountered in now personally, but as a viewer. Really like and subscribe. All right, her defense team.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
welcome.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm a serious person, Bryan. Okay. So, all right, her defense team.
Yeah.
The Karen Reed defense team is the most effective set of advocates that I have ever witnessed in person and on TV. And they take O.J. Simpson's quote dream team. I know you're probably old enough to remember them.
I remember. I watched the trial.
That dream team is nothing. OJ's dream team is nothing compared to the quality and caliber of them.
Wow. Okay. Let me throw this out. Karen Reed.
I feel like I have tremendous sympathy and empathy for her, but I did put something on Twitter. I'm sorry to elaborate, but I just wanted to mention, I did put something on my Twitter yesterday when I made a donation to her fund. And I think this sums it up. Nothing can temper the spirit of a warrior as much as the challenge of dealing with impossible people in positions of power. And that's a credit to Carlos Castaneda. She's a warrior.
She's a warrior. Yeah. You know, the thing that's amazing about Karen, that I've sat here and followed this case for almost 2 years now. And I always say this, that she never has faltered once in front of anybody. And believe me, I'm sure that shit happens behind private closed doors. I'm sure there's tears and there's hugs and frustration and screaming, but not once in the public has she faltered once. And the thing that I love about it too is that these motherfuckers, I'm swearing. I had a lady on the panel. Sorry.
Bring it, Bryan.
These motherfuckers went to her in the very beginning of all this and tried to offer her a deal. We figured that out in the Vanity Fair article. And I think it was like a couple of years she would have taken. And I love the fact that, and this is what solidifies her fucking innocence, that she could have faltered and said, fuck it, I'll go to jail for 3 years or whatever. I'll walk out of this, go on with my life. But she said, you know what? Fuck you.
Yep.
Fuck you. Bring it on. Because you know why? I'm 1000% innocent and I'm going to battle this all the way to the end. And I love people like that. I love people that don't quit, I'm literally looking over my threshold right here. As you walk into my studio, there is a sign over it that says, the best is yet to come. And as I walk out and I shut things down every night and I leave, it says, never give up over my threshold. And I love that. And that is Karen Reed. She's just never given up. And she just comes back, harder and harder every single time. Every piece of shit they throw at her, they throw it back, tenfold right back in the direction. So I think she is in good hands with the defense team. I wouldn't say that I'm excited and looking forward to 2.0. I hope that we're not going to have that happen, but it seems pretty staunch that Bev really wants to get this trial going. And, April 1st, we're going to be seeing it. So
Bryan, there's that passion I'm talking about. I agree with everything you have to say. And I did want to mention to you, I have a small gift that's headed your way for your studio.
Oh, I appreciate it.
I wanted to congratulate you on your new space. That's wonderful.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm really honored about that. All right. Let me throw another name, Brian Higgins, at you.
Oh my God. All right. Wait, I don't have to say one word. I can say sentences, right?
Yeah. Give a couple sentences. We'll move on to the next name.
He's all right. These opinions are my own.
Uh-huh.
I think Brian Higgins is I think he's a killer. I'm sorry. I think he did not intend to kill John O'Keefe, but the facts don't add up in my mind. And I think he is shady. I think he is conniving. I think he didn't order a pizza at whatever o'clock in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
And didn't butt dial Brian Albert. But most notably, I think I learned everything I needed to know about him when he quite altruistically decided to go to the federal kiosk at the Canton PD and out of the goodness of his heart, curate a goddamn extraction, pardon my French.
Give you what I want to give you.
Right. I'll give you what I want to give you.
Right.
Curated text between me and Ms. Reed, which, by the way, like, she didn't like you, man. Like, she didn't like you. But what you didn't want to do, because you knew better, was let them see all your call logs, your Apple Health data, the whether there was voicemails, whether they're deleted texts and deleted internet searches. I'm not techie, so give grace.
Sure.
He's a shady character and a key to the case, and I am here to watch it in 2.0. Shouldn't have to happen. He's the biggest problem in this case for the prosecution. Proctor's number 2, Guarino is number 3.
Yeah, I mean, I've always agreed that Brian Higgins really was a big piece of the catalyst in all of this, and that's my opinion. I know other people have theirs, but Brian Higgins for me has always stuck out. I think he has the most major issues in all of this. Sorry, destroying your phone, bringing it to a military base and discarding it, extracted certain information off your phone. Listen, if you ain't got nothing to do with it, you go, listen, I'm not involved in any of this. Here's my phone. Take an extraction, but hiding that, big problems. All right, Brian Higgins.
I did Higgins. You mean Albert?
Brian Albert, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, let me be very clear. I did not do Brian. I did not do Brian Higgins. Sorry.
Nor did Karen Reed.
I'm sure that'll get
Brian
snipped by the trolls.
Right.
I must have a conflict. But anyway, who are we talking about?
Brian Albert.
Brian Albert. Brian Albert is, if Higgins is a decorated dude, Brian Albert is a dangerous dude.
Yeah.
He's got his hands in this, and he should have come out, even if Karen hit him with her car. He knew that this happened. He knew this happened. He knew there was a body on his front lawn. And he should have come out. But beyond that, I think he was involved in this cover up. These are my opinions. And he's dangerous, folks. It's a police officer. I think he's retired now, but a retired police officer from the Boston PD. And unfortunately, I've encountered many police who have real corruption issues. I think he's one of them. Yeah.
He was actually involved in finding the Craigslist killer. Isn't that amazing?
Was it? Yeah, it was the Craigslist, and I think he had a hand in the Boston Strangler or something.
I think so too. Yeah.
Some other notable case. I apologize, I don't remember who it was.
I think
that
he's
might have been the
involved.
wrong century, the Boston Strangler.
I think he's involved. I think he helped carry John's body out, to be honest with you. All right, two more, and we've saved the best for last, and then I'll pull these quick super chats up, and then let's get into Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia, and then we'll end the show with a little bit of Bryan Kohberger. Okay, here we go. Jennifer McCabe.
Liar. Liar, and think about it. These are my opinions, but Jen McCabe is, as I used this to refer to someone else in this case the other day, she's the type of person, in my opinion, who will steal your wallet and help you look for it.
Find it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Real
agree.
liar.
I agree. All right. One more, and then we'll move on. We'll talk about Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. Trooper Proctor.
Comedic entertainment watching it. I mean, I don't know, but Trooper Proctor, an absolute aberration to women. And I'm personally offended at what he said about Karen Reed. And if I was in person when he said it, he would have been assaulted and I would be in jail right now and there would be a free Nan Gallagher fund. But and all you could grift for it, right? But
Yeah.
he shirked his responsibilities because he is devoid of a moral compass, and it is making a mess of everybody's lives. Everybody involved's lives are ruined, whether it's people going after the McAlberts, people going after Karen Reed and her family. He's a jerk, and he needs to probably go visit. I don't know his religious background. He probably needs to go visit a confessional soon. Or, as I said the other day, get himself a lot more experienced in the custodial arts, because he's going to be cleaning up more than just evidence in the near future.
I just got your Breakfast Club reference there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dating myself.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And the thing that I always get this point across too is that this type of behavior that he displayed in Karen Reed's case is not the only time he's done this. This is a very juvenile thing that has been carried on through his entire life. And unfortunately, he tricked the system to get in to be a cop, because this should have been scrubbed out in his psych evaluation. But this is not the only time he's done this. And that's the scary thing about it, because what other cases has he been involved in that he's looked through, females' phones and said, I'm looking for nudes, or I'm looking at her text conversations, she's talking about this, or, looking at suspects or whoever it may be, witnesses, and he's looking through their personal stuff and having conversations with 1, friends, 2, family members, and 3, his superiors. Pretty disgusting stuff. Pretty disgusting stuff.
I heard you say that on a prior stream. This isn't the first time he's done it, and you are so right. They don't that doesn't
just happen overnight. Right.
And there should be, in my opinion, measurements and benchmarks and protocols and reevaluations in place for those types of continuing rampant unprofessional behaviors in police officers and state troopers to be measured and monitored over time. And his superiors and colleagues were aware of it. Like, they were on some of these texts, liking and laughing. Like, this isn't a surprise to anybody. So you got a real cancer going on in some of the police and state police departments up there. I really hope this case and the Birchmore case and Enrique Delgado-Garcia's case help to revamp this. And it's sure not expedient. Everything is taking forever up there. I wish it would be a little bit faster.
Ridiculous. It is ridiculous. All right, let me read a couple of super chats and then we'll transition into Trooper Delgado-Garcia. Trope, $5. Thank you. Says, sadly, there are still a lot of people that do not want to believe there's corruption in law enforcement or bullies that run the communities. Free Karen Reed and love LTL. Thank you. TC says, does Bev want Karen Reed in prison before the feds step in because it's harder to get out once convicted? Quite possibly. I mean, look at the way that she's treated this case and the way it's been. Cindy B, a member for 18 months. Thank you so much. Said, loving this live. Nothing like watching 2 extremely passionate people. Thanks for always fighting for what is right. Thank you. And please pass the pepper. Says, just got home from work. Rewind later. This guest is fantastic. Great collaboration. Glad you're getting better. Trying to. I can't get rid of this damn laryngitis. It's just my throat is all over the place. Anyway, let's transition a little bit into Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. So we go back to September 12th of 2024. Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia is attending the Mass State Police Academy, weeks away from graduation, and we get a news article that comes out and drops and says that, he was injured fatally during a police training exercise and, suffered this medical crisis. We hear of his injuries from the family, a broken neck, bruises all over his body, a broken ankle. I saw the injuries. I saw the photos. Very, very similar to John O'Keefe's injuries, I must say. Some of those photos that I saw. And then we have 10 days later, the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, steps up and says that we've appointed a special investigator, David Meyer, who was involved in the Mass State Police drug lab scandal. Took him almost 2 years to come to a conclusion in that, and found out, I think it was like 13,000 pieces of evidence that was tampered with. But here we are, 150 days later. And I actually literally texted the family today and asked them, have you heard any updates? And they said they're still investigating. The last update that I heard, David Meyer on December 30th, 2024, came to the family and said, I have concluded my internal, my investigation of the family and friends, and I'm now turning my investigation back inward to the higher ups and the powers that be that run the Mass State Police Academy. We find out about a little bit more detail about the video. The video is a security video. It's about 8 minutes long. The family has viewed it. And unfortunately, we don't know what is the context of that video. But Nan, 150 days, we have no medical examiner's report. I've filed and gotten the death certificate. That is still open.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here? I mean,
Yeah.
what's going on?
I agree. And just so I understand one piece of what you said, the family has not seen the security video, right?
They have.
Oh, they have seen it.
Yes.
Oh,
They just won't divulge what's on it.
okay. So what the hell is going on up there? First, I have a demonstrative. I have an Enrique Delgado-Garcia notebook. I love to start these on cases that I am interested in. So one of the key parts of this case is the timing of it, because honestly and unfortunately to the Delgado-Garcia family, I think that had this happened not in the wake of Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore, there might be less attention paid to it, which is an absolute
Scary.
It is scary, but I think it's a blessing in disguise that there is attention on this, and no one should have to send their son to train to be a police officer and expect to have to bring his body home from a training exercise. But if there's a blessing to come from this, in my opinion, the timing is right and optimal. And I will do what I can, Bryan, I promise to you, to help however I can assist in uncovering some of these anomalies and questions that still remain. 150 days after this type of incident, there should be some answers. And I have administrative law background. I have some police experience in my legal arsenal, but in terms of administrative protocols, I do administrative law, practice it all the time. And there is definitely protocols that are being followed in terms of how this is investigated and how it's being looked into. The fact that the death certificate remains open at this time is ridiculous to me. I did see on a prior stream of yours that, out of respect for the family, you kind of typed out what type of answers were on it. Yeah. And it is incomplete. They absolutely would know after an autopsy what the nature of the injuries are, the cause of the death, the manner of death. There was something on the, I know I had made a note of it, something on the autopsy report basically said something was like they were Oh man, I got to find my notes
Well,
on it.
there's no official autopsy that's been released. Just I wrote into what the Worcester, Mass City Hall just to get the death. I wanted to see what was on the death certificate. We have every right to do that.
Right.
They emailed me a copy of it. I was going to put it up online, but it's very sensitive information. I don't want to release that, and it's illegal. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but I can verbalize it and visualize it for people. But like I said, everything is still open. And this is what I want to get across to everybody is that, in the chats, everybody said, oh, he had a brain aneurysm or something. I want to be very clear on this. Enrique had no prior medical history. When I asked his sister and I said, does he have any prior injuries? Head injury? Did he bump his head? Concussion? She said, we can't even remember the last time he went to the doctor. That's how healthy he is. This guy ran Spartan races and ran, he was a runner. You even heard it from his cousin, Omar. All he did was run and study. That's all he loved to do. And, you have to think about this too. Going into the academy, you're going to get a very thorough medical examination. And if you have any prior injuries, and I talked about this with my friend Todd McGee, retired Mass State Police, that would have to be authorized through your medical provider before you even join the academy. Hey, look, he did have a concussion. There's no signs of, residual in his concussion. He's clear to go. So we didn't have any of that. So let's just use simple logic. If it was a medical episode, why are we still sitting here 150 days later?
Oh yeah.
With no answer.
And in my opinion, you don't get those types of injuries from a boxing exercise. I get it. They're trying to be taught defensive measures and offensive measures, and it's supposed to be done in like a controlled setting. And I've listened to Todd McGee speak on your channel. He's so good at this.
Great.
Even he thinks something has gone awry, but there were protocols that had to have been followed and clearly weren't. But that death certificate, and I apologize if I said autopsy report.
It's fine. No, it's okay.
That death certificate though had something on it that talked about result of an injury, and it said no.
It said no.
So there's more questions than answers.
Right.
And if I were part of the community up there, and I consider myself part of the community even from afar, like I think there needs to be a continued strong press for answers. And sometimes when we think about incidents like this, because it just smells bad, like what the hell happened to him, those types of injuries and all of this covering up, and you've got the governor weighing in and the attorney general. Okay. So without the transparency, without the ability to share some information, even more so with the family, there's no real public need for the government to have to answer the public on this. In my opinion, they should, optics wise, but the family needs answers. These poor people. And I will say, if this continues this long out, because what is that? 150 days. That's like 4 months, 5 months now.
Yeah, it's more than that. It's almost 5 months.
Yeah, I became a lawyer because I suck at math.
November.
But the point is,
5 months.
I'm projecting that the Delgado-Garcias are going to need to file a lawsuit. And here's why. Sometimes the filing of a civil lawsuit
Kind of speed things up.
it will. Think about, and I'm not trying to, talk about something racy on your channel, but that was the impetus of, am I glitching, by the way? I apologize.
No, you're right.
Okay, that was the impetus of the claims against P. Diddy or Diddy, whatever the heck he's called now. There were civil actions, and then the federal government started to take note and interest in it. And then it became a criminal action and a pretty serious one. sometimes filing a civil action and not at the 11th hour of your statute of limitations is best when you feel like you're not getting answers. To do that, there's a statute in pretty much every state that sets forth how you go about suing public entities, whether it's the state of Massachusetts, the Massachusetts State Police, any of the agencies that may be culpable or perceivably culpable under the state laws of Massachusetts. And to sue a public entity in Massachusetts or other states, you have to comply with something that's kind of colloquially known in our field as the Tort Claims Act. And you have to file a notice that warns these agencies and entities that you're going to sue them. And the statute up there, I was reviewing it. I'm not a Massachusetts attorney, so this is not legal advice.
That's this one here that you sent me, right?
It is, yeah. But essentially, it basically says they have 2 years from the date of the incident to file a notice of tort claim against whomever their attorney decides to. So if it were me, I'd be going after the state of Massachusetts, the state police, any other culpable agencies who are public entities. Send that notice of tort claim in to preserve your right to sue. If you don't send that in by 2 years from 2 years after September 12th of 2024, you're barred from suing them. And then under Massachusetts law, you also have 3 years to then sue for the incident from what I read in the statute. So you 2 years out, you've got to put them on notice. You have to sue them within 3 years. But if I were the Delgado-Garcias, I'd get that tort claims notice sent in immediately. And maybe they have already. And I'd file a lawsuit immediately because this is unacceptable.
Their answer today when I asked, is there any updates? And they went, I guess they're still investigating. Where's their fucking attorney in all of this?
Well,
Why is this guy not raising high hell right now? Like, I feel like he's not fighting for this family. Like I'm pissed. Like if I was them, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, you're fucking fired. Like we need someone here to start rattling the cage. We want answers to what happened to our son and our, and our cousin, like our brother. What the fuck?
I agree. So while I, by the way, like off the record with you, Bryan, I am in full agreement. On the record, I would absolutely say, hey, we don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's actively working on this, but all evidence to the contrary, as far as I'm concerned, there need to be strongly worded letters and reaching out to local, not just, content creators, which I'll tell you more, but real mainstream media continue to demand answers. That's why your billboard that you put up right in the Foxborough area is like so pivotal. And I know they're expensive to put up.
I've divulged it to everybody. I mean, and I don't mind talking. It's $3,500 to do a 28-day campaign. I paid for 2. The sign, the second campaign goes down tomorrow. So I'm going to, I want to continue it. Maybe we pause it for a month. And once the spring kicks up and there's more travel, I don't know. But I'm trying to think of some different ways that we can crowdfund it. I paid $7,000 out of my own pocket to put that up because I got fucking pissed. I got pissed that no one's talking about this. Like, why? We hear little blips and blurbs. Oh, it's been, we had the story, that I was involved in on NBC 10. They came out and spoke to me. They did it like a 90-day. It's been 90 days. We haven't heard anything. Once they heard about the billboard, they did a little story on it, but it just got swept under the rug again.
No.
And, the thing that bothers me is that you're sending a healthy young man that apparently was a great guy, did a great job in the DA's office. His lifelong dream was to become a Mass State police trooper. And I believe in putting good people in those positions. We need to get things turned around here with our policing in Massachusetts, especially the Mass State Police. And they send this this young kid off to the academy. He's weeks away from graduating and he fucking dies. He gets killed. And
Yeah.
there's no answers.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy, Nan.
To the Delgado-Garcia's attorney, I'm going to respectfully say this. I hope you're listening. And Bryan, if you find out that he or she is not listening, please send this part of the show to that family. Your son family deserves more. And to his attorney, I would be absolutely lighting up the state police and the state and the governor's office and the attorney general's office alleging a good faith basis and suspicion without being told any reason to dispel the following. I think there was probably racial motivation. I think there was
100%.
Hazing involved.
100% there was.
I think there could have been possibly some type of underlying health related issue, maybe. And if there was, then the state through its entities had a duty to protect him. They had a duty anyway, regardless of his health. But it sounds like he was a young, strapping man who was aspiring to be an honorable police officer.
Yeah.
I also think there was some element of profiling. I mean, harken back to, do you remember, you're around close to my age, A Few Good Men.
Yep.
And in A Few Good Men, which
Code
was
Red.
originally a screenplay by Alan Sorkin, in A Few Good Men, which is, for those of you kiddies out there, it's a movie with Tom
Great
Cruise.
courtroom drama.
Yeah, Kevin Pollak, Jack Nicholson, excuse me.
Nicholson, Tom
I got
Cruise,
golf on my mind.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, it's a great movie, but that there was hazing involved in that
Code Red.
military setting, and there was a cover up.
Yep.
And I am smelling one here. I think there needs to be suspensions. I think there needs to be terminations of officers and executive officers who were in any way involved. I think there probably is maybe one individual who dealt the fatal blows, like just maybe one. But sometimes the cover-up's worse than the crime. And I'm not even saying this is a crime. What I am saying is this family deserves more.
They deserve better and deserve more. Yeah, I want to just
I will help how I can.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, Bryan. I will help however I can moving forward.
And I'm going to send you my spreadsheet here, but here's put something in context for you. October 4th, there's an article that comes out. Okay. And this is after Enrique has passed. Did you know, and this is a quote from the article, this is a quote from Delgado-Garcia himself. He described the environment, described a hazing-like and torturous environment at the academy for weeks to his family. He spoke of that. And let's go back to Giovanni Baptiste, one of Enrique Delgado-Garcia's friends that were at the academy in the same class, essentially was let go weeks before graduation. And he came out and made statements of the same thing. And they called him, I believe, the N-word. They told him to get out of here, N. If we go back and watch the video, they said very disparaging things about him.
Oh my God.
So
yeah, something doesn't smell right. And they have answers. I will say, they're just not sharing them. I will say this, and I'm not reading all of the chat, but it sounds like there's some people involved in this potential cover-up who might have some juxtapositions to the Karen Read case, if I'm reading it correctly. But with all of that said, I think that what has happened to Enrique and thereafter his family, who are victims in all of this, and this shady dealing and lack of transparency, all on taxpayer dimes up there, it needs to stop. And sometimes the only way it will stop is when you get involved with a heavy duty civil litigation and or federal inquiry or probe related to this. Because if there were, and it depends on the nature of the allegations, but there may be civil rights violations at play here. I definitely think it should be explored. This is all about two words: police accountability.
Mhm.
And if they will not be accountable, not only to his memory, his family, and his fellow officers, I mean, I bet you those trainees, or whatever the term is for them, some of them are probably traumatized by all of this, especially from that hazing environment. And I've never understood, my personal opinion, I don't understand the military hierarchical terminology, like colonel. This guy's a colonel. This guy's a sergeant. You know, to some degree, the parallels between police and military sound right to me. And in some instances, it sounds like it's a bunch of people with inflated egos trying to self-aggrandize. So there's more to be said on this case, but most notably, the family, and I will promise to help contribute intellect and or funds however I can. I think the family, if they haven't already, needs to engage an outside medical examiner. I don't know the status of his cremains or remains, if he was buried or cremated, or if, I'm assuming I don't want to make assumptions.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, but I will say he should be reevaluated. And in the Sandra Birchmore case,
Michael Bowden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know in my field, with the doctors that I deal with and the evaluations, they have there's many forensic pathologists and medical examiners who will look at this and or do a record review. Bodden just did a record review on Birchmore.
Yeah.
But you can tell a lot from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd love for him to look at this case.
I have another idea for the family, which I'll happy to chat with you at another time, Bryan, like offline about it. I'm doing some brainstorming.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to send you my timeline spreadsheet so you can kind of get caught up with all of the articles that I sourced and the information that I have. You know, I tried to put as much comprehensive information in there so people can come to, you know, their own determination in this. To me, it just doesn't smell. And I know someone here was talking about the ACLU being involved. They did. They made a statement on October 17th. So they've made their statement. You know, everybody's making fucking statements, but they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've even called the governor's office and left messages. Do you think they're going to return my call? No. I email David Meyer's office constantly. I tag the Mass State Police on Twitter constantly. Let's get some, you know, some information about Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia tonight. I know Maura Healey, our governor, Massachusetts, was talking about the tariffs and how much, and I literally just go into her tweet and I say, you know, this is great, but let's get some answers on Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. You know, it's been 150 days. You know, not even a statement, not even anything to come out and say, hey, you know, we understand the public concern, but we have an ongoing investigation. Just give us that.
I agree.
Let us know what's going on.
It's a matter of respect, and not to tie it back to Karen Reed as well, but I will say it's also a matter of respect in Karen Reed's circumstances for the Reed family and for Karen herself. Like, the lack of transparency from these entities up there, whether they're prosecutors' offices, the state police, the attorney general's office, the governor's office, in all of these different cases, and throw Birchmore just on route. There's another one, Brian Walsh. I'm starting to, you know, and by no means am I taking any public position that he's being railroaded. I am not making that here, but I will.
Brian Walsh killed his wife. I mean,
that is my opinion too. But and I don't mean to step off of the Delgado-Garcias, but I will say Brian Walsh appears to have killed his wife, and Proctor it's going to be Proctorgate. All
Yeah.
of the police missteps in Karen's case and others,
Yeah.
Birchmore, etc., are going to completely F the prosecution
Yep.
of Walsh.
Yep.
See why things
That's-
should be done properly? It's unbelievable.
That's why I think, and I've said this too, February 10th, we have the second part of the hearing for Proctor. I'm going to tell you, and this is just my opinion. Again, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in any of this, but I think that they're going to get him in here. They're going to get him into that hearing. They're going to go, okay, we've gathered all the evidence and we're going to take all this under consideration. And it's going to be months till they make the determination because 1, Karen Reed, and 2, Brian Walsh. He's the lead. He's the lead in both of those cases. And I think if they let this guy go now, it's going to falter the Commonwealth in both of those. I mean, good for us. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's going to falter the Commonwealth's case that this guy was part of, what was going on, this corruption.
Bryan, I'm going to say something to your viewers that I've heard you say before, which is if you don't like the way things are run in your state, your county,
vote.
Yeah, or your town, your community, your select board, we're down to the most granular group of leaders. Vote, show up. I don't care if you're red or blue or pink and blue in the Karen Reed situation, that's a complete underestimated word for what's going on with her. But vote, show up. When I've made donations, and I'm going to continue to, when I make donations to content creators, I say, keep showing up, care about what is going on in your community. It could be you. Enrique, it could be your brother, your cousin, your son.
Karen Reed could be your sister. Yep.
Yeah.
Your daughter.
So change is made by brave people. That is why I stated that quote about Karen. I think she is a brave warrior and she is being persecuted. I think it's complete poetic irony that she's being persecuted in the state where the Salem witch trials took place. I find all of the literary parallels there, and I draw some with Enrique as well. But I vow to you or your fellow colleague creators or your audience to help grow this movement as it relates to all of the cases that you feel are important, because this is a lot of work and you do a fantastic job at it, Bryan. I'm so in awe of what you're doing.
I appreciate that. And I want to kind of just go off your idea, your statement there. You look at Massachusetts, you look at Boston, okay? You think of all the historical things that have happened here, the Revolutionary War, the Boston Tea Party 250 years ago. Yeah. 250 years ago, some wise old men wanted to fight back against taxation and went onto a boat and caused this Boston Tea Party, which led to the Revolutionary War, to fight back against government. But what have we become here in Massachusetts? We've become a government state, and it's sickening. We've reverted back to 250 years, and the government just runs everything here, and it's so fucking corrupt. Yes. And that's what we fought back against. And we're right back where we were 250 years ago. It's unbelievable.
It's hypocrisy,
yes,
irony, lunacy. I don't even, pick a noun. The fact that it's Massachusetts and these things are happening, it's not even laughable from other parts of the country. It's scary. Like if Massachusetts, I find it to be a relatively progressive,
super progressive
state, right? So, you think about that and you go, what the hell is going on? I'm going to look at the camera because I keep looking at your face. I'm fangirling. I'm going to look at the camera and I am going to say this. to the governor of Massachusetts or your successor, please wake up, please care, please speak up, please show up. We need change up in Massachusetts. And I say we because I in a very short time publicly, but from afar and watching this, I'm going to call myself part of the we. We all need the government to step up and do its job for transparency in criminal actions, for speaking up when there is improper behavior and disclosures or lack of disclosures in criminal prosecutions, where there's obfuscating evidence and inverted videos and deleted texts and all of that gamesmanship, when you've got troopers and police officers who are running amok and the inmates are running the asylum, when you've got families like Enrique Delgado-Garcia, God rest his soul, his poor family, they want answers. They just want answers. It's not about, oh my God, we're going to get sued. We can't do this. We don't want to disclose that. They need to know so they can exercise rights that they may have. Do something, Massachusetts, because we strongly need you to step up and do what you were voted into position to do. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, and I'm sure I'll get hate trolled tomorrow for it. But I said that for all of the trolls out there too. It's your state too.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to do better. We definitely need to do better. Okay, Nan, let's do this. Do you want to end with a little Bryan Kohberger? I know you wanted to talk about the Idaho 4. Things are heating up. We've had some more motion hearings. I've been kind of catching some of it, but I think this guy did it. I've been a firm believer. I've followed this case from the beginning. It's a tragic story that it's been taking almost it's over 3 years, and there hasn't been a trial in this yet. The way I look at it is, you have Kohberger that stood up in court, didn't say guilty or not guilty, said, I'm looking forward to being exonerated, had the judge put in his not guilty verdict for him. The guy's been sitting in jail almost 3 years. I'm sorry. Innocent people, in my opinion, tend to not want to hang out in jail for that long. He's got a major problem. His DNA was found on a knife sheath under a button snap where two of the victims, Kaylee Gonzalez and Maddie Mogan, were found in that bedroom. This knife sheath has his DNA on it. There's been so many questions of how it got there. There's different conspiracies about it. I don't know. I mean, the DNA right there in a bedroom where people are dead, it's touch DNA and it's only a certain amount of DNA. He's been seen in and around that area before the murders. I digress. A lot to get into. What's your feeling on this? What's your take on this?
So, Bryan, I'm going to say this because I know your viewers have been on with you for some time, and I know I ramble. It's a New York, New Jersey thing.
It's fine.
First, before I give you my brief take, I'm going to throw you an offer, which is if I think the trial is set to start in like August.
And I plan on going.
God bless. All right.
I want to go for a week and at least just kind of hang out around the court. That's if I can get an Airbnb or a hotel, because I'm sure that area of Boise is just going to be loaded with people in media. This case is going to be huge.
Who you may want to chat with is like someone like Andrea Burkhart or one of the other lawyers online who has some more specific understanding of the geography of the area for some of these big trials. Sure. That's where Valo Daybell's trial was too. But I will give you an offer. When that case really heats up with the real transparent exchange of discovery, because a lot's under seal, and as pre-trial motions really do heat up and that trial approaches and it starts, I'd be more than happy to give you some color commentary for your trials, or to hop onto a show, or to even record like little snippets of updates on it as that trial
That's
unfolds.
awesome.
But here's my take. I think the evidence against Bryan Kohberger is overwhelming. I think he's got real problems. And I think actually the police out there, in conjunction with the FBI, did a great job. And Massachusetts, you might be able to take note on that. But anyway, I think they did a great job, and down to the car and down to the phone data and where it was pinging, off what cell towers, the knife sheath. The evidence is robust, and he has a great lawyer, public defender, who's doing her job. She's advocating for him. But I will say, Ann Taylor, who went before a judge I think it was last week, maybe the week prior, and made an argument to that judge that Bryan has a privacy right in his DNA found at a crime scene where 4 college kids were slayed. And he was objecting, and she was doing it for him, essentially objecting to the fact that his DNA was run through different search engines and platforms against his ancestors, and et cetera, and through investigative genetic genealogy, he was identified, or his father was identified. It's going to be a guilty verdict. You heard it here first, if not on any other news program. But I love your prior coverage on it. And I know that Karen Reed case has really kind of probably put it on the back burner for you. If you ever want to heat it up again, I'm happy to do it with you.
Yeah.
But I laugh my ass off when you say, just driving around.
That's his excuse. He was just driving, stargazing and driving around. That is one of the most bullshit excuses I've ever heard in my life. Listen, if I'm not involved, I would say, here's my gas station receipt. I got food at this specific time. I was with XYZ. This fucking guy's excuse is just driving around stargazing at night.
At like 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, or whatever. I apologize. The time eludes me.
It was like 2 in the morning.
Who the hell does that?
No
and
one.
By the way, if you didn't kill the 4 people, and there's eyewitness evidence that says, a 6 foot something guy with bushy eyebrows. Okay. Like, if you didn't do it, I still think you're weird, and I want to avoid you if you're driving around at 4 in the morning.
Right, 2 in the morning,
stargazing
looking at stars.
On a cloudy night, my friend, on a cloudy night.
So here's a couple of tidbits. So we just found in this last hearing, which everybody was like, oh my God, they were, that we found out that the roommates were texting during the actual event. I had talked about that. Like, I have lives on that like a year ago. We figured all that out. Like they were probably like, oh my God, like what is going on? We figured that out from the PCA, because when they they talked about the extraction of data from the 2 roommates. And I went, well, why would they, and they were lining up timelines, and they said, we think the murders would have happened between X time and X time. And I went, the reason they got that was because of the timestamps on their chats. So I figured that out like a year ago. I used to have a couple of people that came on panel and we used to talk about the case. Right. But another tidbit, and this is very interesting too, and I want to throw this out there. In one of the interviews, specifically the Kaylee Gonzalez, when her father was talking about things that the police had in evidence and didn't release back to them for quite a while, they talked about an item which was really weird. They said that they had a Bluetooth speaker that was inside Kaylee's either room or inside that house that night that Kaylee owned. And I went, oh, that's really weird. Why would they keep that speaker? And here was my thought. Well, we know on the night, supposedly he put his phone in airplane mode. So he couldn't have technically connected to any devices. Because, look if I pick my phone up right now, I have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on. It's probably trying to connect with 15 different things that are in this
Yeah,
room. It's trying,
handshakes.
right? Handshakes. So my theory on this is, and it's not a bad theory, and I actually asked a Bluetooth expert about this. I had her on my show. She worked for Verizon for like 7 years. My theory about it was, if this fucking guy was scoping out the area, he might have at some point come up close to that house and looked in that slider.
Oh
I
yeah.
bet you he had his Bluetooth on and it made a handshake connection with that
Oh, yeah.
Bluetooth speaker. And that could be one of the things that's under seal. Because I kept saying, like, why would they hold on to this Bluetooth speaker for almost, over a year and not give it back to the family? So I
It's,
think there's something there with that.
but by the way, Bryan, I learned that from you and watching your show,
Hmm.
and the fact that you found it to be notable. You
And
called
no one talked about it.
right, and it's really not talked about on mainstream
No.
TV. I think there's something there.
Yeah.
And if it does come to be that there is a significance from an evidentiary standpoint of any Bluetooth type of connections or handshakes between Kohberger and technology in or around that house,
He's done.
I'm going to reach right out to you and I'm going to say you did it. You called that. I mean, I don't even know when that was. It was like 2 years ago.
This is like almost 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the type of really, I don't even know the right adjective, Bryan. You are like a dog with a bone. Okay. You are like a dog with a BLT bone. Okay. And you are going at these cases with this hunger and panache for truth and justice. And that is why I'm a big fan of yours.
I appreciate that.
So just keep showing up. And I'm happy to have any Kohberger discussions with you on or off the record moving forward.
That's great. I'm trying to look at the date on this. Hang on.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up here in a second.
But hi, everybody in the chat.
Yes.
And like
Make
and
sure to smash that like button. We appreciate everybody being here. Yeah, that was like over a year and a half ago I did that live, that I figured all that stuff out. And that's a really interesting case. And I can't wait to kind of dive back in there. I know there's been a lot of information that have come out lately. There's tons of theory. When I do Kohberger streams now, I have so many people that come in and just hate on me.
Oh yeah.
And it's great to see all these people that come out of the woodwork and they're like, you're so wrong. He's been framed. I'm like, everything is not a frame job, believe me. And personally, I think there's a lot of, there's the physical evidence that's there, but I think the digital footprint is going to be really hard to get past. And let's just put this into comparison. Ann Taylor is fighting just as hard like Hank Brennan to keep out all of the major things that tie Kohberger to this crime. And let's just put that on reverse.
Yeah.
Look at what Hank Brennan's doing. Dr. Russell trying to get rid of, Archer trying to get rid of, and so on and so on. And if those aren't key things and pivotal things in this case, then why would these defense attorneys or the Commonwealth and the defense attorney fight against this? So
I agree with you. He's being a defense. Brennan is being a defense attorney in a prosecution. He needs to remember which hat he's wearing. And I lose a lot of sleep on why he was brought in. I understand no one else wanted to do it, right? No one else wanted to do it allegedly according to Vanity Fair article, and nobody well, I guess he had prominence with the Whitey Bulger trial, etc. But there, in my opinion, is a strategic reason why Morrissey tapped him. And I think it was a mistake. By the way, one last thing for your viewers to think about, and you. Has anybody ever seen Morrissey step foot in a Karen Reed courtroom for any hearing?
No.
Right. Now, is that a requirement? No. But I understand. I saw one of the candidates who's looking to replace him on your show. She seemed like a class act, although I don't get involved in politics. But let me tell you something. Morrissey, who has wasted taxpayer money, with now 2 trials with ridiculous evidentiary withholdings and late disclosures and inverted videos and all the shenanigans and wasted money on inept experts, in my opinion.
Mhm.
All of this financial waste, then hire an outside special prosecutor to what I believe was a tune of $75,000. And I will tell you, it's got to be more than that if his paralegal is now working on the case. I think he's torn through the 75,000. But with all
yeah,
of
I
that,
think you do.
with all that said, the Morrissey won't even step foot in a courtroom and see what's going on and have his face be seen. He, in my opinion, is a coward, both
Mhm.
politically and morally. So you can put that in your Hanctionary.
I love it. I love it. And I agree. So yeah, listen, I want to just thank you for spending almost 2 hours here on the channel. We covered a lot of great topics, and it was really nice to get your opinion on all of this. I'd love to have you come back as some more of these, we're going into a schedule here. We'll have more hearings. I'd love to have you come back and get your perspective on these hearings. And definitely when I get back into Kohberger stuff, I'd love to have you come over and do some of that as well.
It's a pleasure being here. If you're ever in need of a boisterous, opinionated woman from the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, I am here.
I love it. I love it.
Everybody support Bryan and support Enrique Delgado-Garcia's family. Please support the Karen Reed Fund. All the content creators need you. This is tough work. I feel very honored to have great conversations with people I admire on this topic. So
yeah, thank you. You are a huge fan favorite now. And a lot of people are looking forward to your opinion and hearing you talk. And it's been a real honor to have you here. You've said some really, really nice things, and I appreciate that. I did not expect that at all. Wow, that was very nice of you. And also, just really quick, the candidate I had on is Juna Perkins.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to go back and watch that live, she'll be challenging Michael Morrissey in 2026 for that seat of Norfolk DA. Can you hang out a little bit after we go off air?
I can, but briefly though, I have big babies to put to sleep.
I got you.
Thanks, everybody.
So this is Nan Gallagher. She's a fantastic attorney. Gave her opinions this evening on Karen Reed, Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia, and Bryan Kohberger. So I want to just thank her for her time this evening, and I want to thank all of you for watching. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed, that's the most important thing. Turn on all your bell notifications, and we'll have Nan back pretty soon. So big fan favorite. Everybody loves you. We're going to end this live now, and I appreciate everybody watching. We'll talk to everybody soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.